Abrahams to move the motion, and I will then call the Minister to respond. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention, for a 30-minute debate. Order. Debbie Abrahams to move the motion.
Thank you so much, Ms Baz. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. It's lovely to see you there in the chair. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to lead this Westminster Hall debate on citizens' assemblies and how these can be used to enhance public engagement in political decision-making, bringing benefits to our democracy and society as a whole. As some of you may know, last month I introduced the Standards in Public Life Bill into Parliament. We know that many people across our great country and nation states feel that the UK Parliament, including MPs and ministers that sit in this place, is disconnected from them and their lives. This is not just about poor behaviour of a few bad apples affecting how people feel. There is a much deeper malaise. There is a growing lack of trust and confidence that people have in politics and politicians. Last year, the King's College London revealed that out of 24 countries, the UK fares poorly in confidence in the government, political parties, and even Parliament. Added to this, there is a marked difference by generation. Young people have experienced some of the biggest shifts in attitudes. Confidence in the government among millennials in Britain has halved since 2005, falling to its lowest level on record, and Gen Z have very low levels of confidence, a wide range of other institutions too. The Hansard Society's audit on political engagement series between 2004 and 2019 revealed an increasing sense of powerlessness and disengagement that people have reported over time. Similarly, polling by the think tank Compassion in Politics showed that 4 out of 5 people have no respect for politicians, and that 40% of parents would be concerned if their child expressed a desire to become a politician. This is very worrying if we want our democracy not just to survive, but to thrive. Happy to.
Madam Chair, can I just first of all congratulate the Honourable Lady for bringing this forward. As I always do research on these matters, and in Northern Ireland, I want to add this to the debate. Northern Ireland is very fortunate to have its own members of the Citizen Assembly with 3 high-level resolutions, core themes of social care change and strong leadership. It has 75 members, and their resolutions intend to provide contact to recommendations from members. So is the Honourable Lady, for instance, aware of Northern Ireland's Citizen Assembly, and does the Honourable Lady believe that it can help to foster better communications between people and their elected representatives? And it really does that. I think the Honourable Lady would like to add her support and commendation for that as well.
Thank you very much for that intervention. That was, I wasn't aware specifically of the Assembly in Northern Ireland, although I'm aware of many across, as I say, our nation states and internationally as well. This is being seen as a mechanism by which elected representatives can maintain contact throughout a political cycle with their constituents on various policy issues. Polling from the Institute of Government recently showed 2/3 of constituents said that they do not think the current government behaves to high ethical standards. Likewise, polling from the UK Anti-Corruption Coalition found 2/3 of voters believe UK politics is becoming more corrupt. We know that when socioeconomic inequalities are narrow, trust between different communities and groups increases. And the reverse is true when these inequalities widen. And of course, that's the situation we find ourselves in at the moment. But there are also other good reasons for greater public engagement and deliberative policy making, including through citizens' assemblies. Before I was elected to this place, I served as a public health consultant and academic. My work was particularly focused on tackling health inequalities and the main determinants of these inequalities, which are the inequalities in income, wealth and power. It may surprise you to know that there is an independent and universal effect on our health and well-being that relates to our status in a hierarchy. The process of engaging people in decision-making, in sharing that power, impacts positively on their health and well-being, as well as developing better politics based on lived experience and consensus.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way. How does a few people sitting in a citizens' assembly somehow enhance the involvement of the public? Is it not, in fact, completely undemocratic and contrary to the involvement of the public, who have the right to elect us and unelect us?
I thank my right honourable friend for his intervention. I'll explain a little bit more about how it actually adds to the role of elected representatives. It doesn't detract from them. And explain exactly the benefits of this. So the European World Values Survey has tracked changes in individuals' perceptions of freedom and control over time. Worryingly, they found low perceptions of freedom and control was associated with rising populist support. When people do not feel engaged in society in their local community, the decisions are made about them without them, and that politicians don't have their interests at heart, they not only lose faith in democracy, seeking political extremes, but this also impacts on their health. And this is why citizens' assemblies and active participative policy making in general is so important. Because by engaging with it and empowering people about the issues that matter to them all year round, we're helping them to give more control over their lives and a far greater stake in our society.
Can I just say, essentially, a few people in a citizens' assembly does not involve the public. The public will get involved this year in a general election. That's how the public get involved and engaged. They may feel that the results of that election aren't reflecting because the great and the good are maybe influencing and financial sources are influencing things more than they should do, but none of this actually impacts on the general public. I think the latest referendum in Ireland might demonstrate that.
Again, I thank my right honourable friend for his intervention. I'm afraid the evidence doesn't bear this out. And it's not the right honourable member that seems to be suggesting this is replacing the role of elected representatives. That's not the case. This is about enhancing it. And as I say, I would urge him to listen to what I'm saying. And also, I will be happy to supply the evidence of the evaluations of the benefits of these. There may be some questions about even some resistance to the notion of citizens' assemblies, and that may be down to Burkean belief that the job of making policies is that of elected representatives. Let me be clear, citizens' assemblies don't replace elected representatives' ultimate decision-making role. They enhance it, providing considered evidence and recommendations to inform that decision-making. Very, very briefly, citizens' assemblies are representative groups of people selected by random through the lottery principle. They are tasked with examining an issue that's in-depth and making recommendations. Such assemblies have been used by many policymakers in the UK and elsewhere to assist in policy decision-making. There is actually an OECD evaluation that's currently going on right across the swathe of countries that constitute the OECD because of the value that are being seen in these democracies. They have also been used by governments in their policy making and have been even formed part of some countries' constitutions. So, for example, Ireland has, as part of their constitution, this important role. Famously, Ireland used citizens' assemblies to examine such delicate and sensitive matters such as abortion and same-sex marriage. I will for the last time.
Did they use this in the recent referenda as well?
Thank you, Ms. Vaz. They used the last one that they used it in was about 10 years ago, and we had a very in-depth analysis from people who ran that about 2 years ago. In 2018, 2 select committees undertook a citizens' assembly on social care, and then in 2019-20, 6 select committees commissioned one to look at climate change. It was this process that I was an official observer on. I was just so impressed with how it was organised, from the selection of citizens to the facilitation of the evidence sessions to the consensus development of recommendations. The interviews I did with participants was also incredibly powerful, and everyone seemed to get so much out of it. I have long been convinced of the importance of participative, deliberative decision-making in policy development and reviews, and I believe citizens' assemblies could be an incredibly powerful tool for this. But as a politician who believes passionately in evidence-based policy, the evidence from the recent evaluation of citizens' assemblies, including an independent evaluation of the Climate Assembly pilot, is also very encouraging. In the Climate Assembly evaluation report, it states, "Our overriding conclusion is that Citizens' Assembly UK was a highly valuable process that enabled a diverse group of UK citizens to engage in parliamentary scrutiny of government on climate policy in an informed and meaningful manner. The case demonstrates a significant step forward in the UK Parliament's public engagement strategy, and based on our evidence, they should seek to establish more citizens' assemblies in the future to feed into the scrutiny work of the Select Committee process." I hope that as we move towards the general election, we are not only discussing what our policies will be, but how we will develop and review them with people locally and nationally.
I'm grateful to her for giving way, and she's making an interesting speech. The criticism I hear from the public about politicians is that they talk too much and do too little. People want things done, and it strikes me that there seems to be, across all of our institutions, nationally, devolved and even locally, politicians desiring to abrogate responsibility. Politicians need to make decisions, politicians need to get things done, and that's what people want.
And I wouldn't disagree with my honourable friends. As I said earlier, it doesn't remove the responsibility of politicians to make those decisions, but it will ensure that they are better decisions, they are informed decisions, they are considered based on the evidence, and that we have support from our constituents in this regard. So from artificial intelligence to air quality to assisted dying, citizens' assemblies could be an invaluable tool. The crucial point is that as we move towards a general election, we cannot treat it as simply a once in every 5 years referendum and just expect the British people to suck it up in between when the policies change or new policies emerge. Rather, general and other elections must instead be just one part of a process of deliberative democracy process that engages with the people that we represent, that we serve all year round, locally and nationally. Thank you.
Minister Hall.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Bowden. It's a pleasure to both serve under your chairmanship and to be replying to the debate ably moved by the Honourable Lady, the member for Oldham East and Saddleworth. Let me begin, I suppose, by, which I always like to try and do, which is to find the point of agreement between whoever it is who's raised the debate and if I'm replying, me. She's right to talk about the importance of trust in politics and engagement in our political processes. And we are living as a mature, advanced Western democracy, as all advanced, mature Western democracies are, in difficult times. Social media, conspiracy theories, different people with competing views, the rise of populism, an uncertain world in so many big geopolitical, environmental questions. No wonder a lot of people feel disconnected and discombobulated. So public engagement is absolutely key. And I think some of the strengths that we have in our country, we have as any honourable or right honourable members' inbox will attest, a very vibrant lobby and third sector group of people on a whole range of issues. I've been doing this job for 8.5 years. I'm still surprised by some of the groups which exist out there who wish to perfectly properly make their views known on certain issues to their members of parliament. We have vibrant, open and democratic political parties. I'd suggest that our advice surgeries provide that wonderful opportunity to effectively provide mini citizens' assemblies where individuals or groups of constituents can come and talk to us about the issues that they find important to them. I also think we occasionally underplay our power to convene. And we can convene all sorts of meetings, public or private, in our constituencies to invite people either on a select list or by open invitation. I've done something very similar on environmental and climate change issues, an open invitation, and a whole raft of people came across the age groups in my constituency. Certainly they improved my knowledge and understanding of the issues, and I hope also to hear from a political perspective some of the checks and balances and some of the challenges that the democratic process throws up. So I think that there are ways which are currently being deployed to maximise public engagement and therefore hopefully to grow and inculcate trust. But I don't subscribe, and nor does the government, to the argument of the Honourable Lady. It's a perfectly respectable argument that she's put forward, and she's evidenced it as she has seen fit. So it's a question of judgment. As we all know, to govern is to choose, and often there are competing options. I don't think that we address some of the fundamental problems with which the Honourable Lady opened her speech by defaulting to the creation of citizens' assemblies. I think the Honourable Gentleman almost gave my speech for me, and almost as if he was pre-timed, is on his feet, and of course I will give way.
Choose. The essence of exercises like citizens' assemblies is they will deal with a narrow issue. Government then has to choose between priorities as well. And that is where essential political decisions get taken, and then with the opportunity for the British public to decide whether they like that direction of travel or not. And isn't that also the case? We need to listen to campaigning groups. They have an important part of our democracy, but ultimately it's the broader public who have to decide.
Well, the Honourable Gentleman is absolutely right on that. And one of, I think, the great strengths of single-issue pressure groups is that they bring a whole wealth and range of in-depth knowledge on a particular system or a particular issue. The downside of those is, of course, if you are a single-issue pressure group or campaigner, you don't look at the larger picture, you don't take the balance and the governing to choose, etc. And that is why I've seen a lot of evidence to suggest this, that membership of single-issue pressure groups goes up, but that sort of mixed potpourri, the sort of Woolworths pick and mix of joining a political party, where you do often have to give and take and trim and tack, has proved to be less popular, particularly amongst younger people, because, of course, I'll give way, yes.
Again, I think there's a misunderstanding in terms of what this citizens' assemblies are not replacing decision-making. They're trying to provide an evidence-based, not a lobby-based approach for a particular vested interest. They're providing evidence on a range of evidence to the participants of the Citizens' Assembly that's balanced, that is comprehensive, and for people to come to a consensus about in terms of the recommendation they would make to policymakers to decide. This is completely misrepresenting what citizens' assemblies are about, but it's about the engagement of people in a particular policy issue.
Well, I'm not entirely sure the Honourable Lady has helped her cause by that further amplification as with regards to what she means by them. Because I think the point that the Honourable Gentleman for Worley made was the right one. What will the outcome be? If one stands as an independent, free of a party whip and supporting a party programme in government, then of course one can seek the views of constituents all the time. How would you like me to vote on this? It fundamentally changes the Burkean principle of having a representative rather than a delegatory democracy, and I think our representative democracy, as set out by Burke in that famous address to the electors of Bristol, still holds us in pretty good stead. And I don't make this point facetiously. This room is a citizens' assembly in a representative democracy. We have elections to it at some point this year. In a couple of weeks, we will have elections to citizens' assemblies be they for the mayoralty, be they for the police and crime commissioners, be they for our local councillors. And it may be that we just should remind ourselves that we talk about the word democracy, but let's just remind ourselves of the history of that word, from the Greek demos, people, and kratos or kratos, power, power of the people. We are the citizens' assembly, and we can represent those concerns of constituents for a whole variety of ways, to ministers, through APPGs, through debates, and the like. So I'm all for getting as many people, and particularly the Honourable Lady was absolutely right to highlight the need to harness the intellect, the enthusiasm and the interest of our younger generations, who I think occasionally slightly lazily, maybe slightly arrogantly, turn off, switch off and turn away. Oh, they're all corrupt, they're all this, they're all that, nobody listens, etc. And then when you ask, well, when was the last time you made representation or asked to see or join a lobby or whatever, oh, I don't bother with any of that. I can well remember, I say this as somebody who voted Remain in the referendum, being outside after the event and there was a large pro-EU demonstration going on, falling into conversation with about 20 young, all of whom were of voting age, only 10 of whom had voted. The others told me that they had posted stuff on Facebook, they had put things on Twitter. I then had to point out to them that the returning officer didn't count posts on Facebook or posts on Twitter. They counted ballot papers. That is how you affect change. Of course I give way.
Minister, I think my honourable friend has posed a legitimate challenge around how we create, in a systemic way, evidence-based policy based on participative democracy. I'm not convinced that that's through citizens' assemblies, but I entirely understand the point that she's making. What I rail against, and the Minister has touched on this, is the idea that politicians aren't citizens. And even when the Minister spoke about the formalised structure through which we can consult constituents, a good Member of Parliament rooted in their community will be doing that every day. I do it through taking my kids to football, cricket, rugby, to going to Mass on a Saturday, to being in the bookie at Mass on a Sunday, to being in the bookies on a Saturday. A good MP will be in touch with his community, his or her community, consulting them all of the time. And that's a separate point to the one my honourable friend makes, but it is important that MPs don't allow this perception that we're all rarefied species detached from people to take hold, because it is not true.
Oh, the honourable gentleman is absolutely right on that. We do ourselves no service, do we, as a group of people called to this vocation of this particular strand of vocational public service, if we try and set ourselves apart as plaster-footed saints, in some way separate and uncontactable. We have to be within our communities. I agree with the Honourable Gentleman. I mean, I usually have a citizens' assembly when I used to drop my kids off at primary school, when I'm in the queue at the supermarket or the petrol station or wherever it may happen to be. Oh, hello, Simon, how are you? While I've got you, can I just talk to you about this, that and the other? That is what an engaged Member of Parliament does. So I hear, as I say, Ms Faz, what the Honourable Lady says. But it's the ballot box that creates the forum of those citizens' assemblies, a representative democracy. Now, we can't have elections every 6 months or every year or whatever, as often as we may change our socks or our stance on a particular issue. But that is how this country selects its representatives to take decisions. And the one thing which I've yet to be convinced about with regards to the efficacy of citizens' assemblies is that you have this sort of random postcode lottery of people selected, as the Honourable Lady set out in this debate. They hear evidence from experts. Who appoints and who defines who these experts are is a moot point, but let's just work on the principle for the moment. They give up a lot of their time. They take evidence. They come to a conclusion. And in coming to that conclusion, they will probably find themselves operating in exactly the same way that we do, which is, I'll give way on that point, you'll give way on this point. We will reach and find a compromise. Now, it may work once, but I can just imagine. Now, it may be a luxury of opposition, something I hope I don't ever get a taste of, but who knows? But I can well imagine, somebody, particularly on the government benches, saying, I've convened, or there has been a citizens' assembly in my constituency, and they've decided this, and they want me to vote this particular way or do this particular thing. Now, the honourable gentleman is a seasoned former whip for his party. I'm not entirely sure what our whips' offices collectively would say to that. They would all say, well, that's all fantastically interesting, but the party policy is X. You availed yourself of the benefit of standing for party X, Y, or Z. You will have to follow the whip. Now, if you then go back and say to those people who gave willingly of their time in a citizens' assembly, I hear exactly what you said, and thank you for all of your effort. But you can't mandate me to do anything. I'm perfectly free to do as I will, but my whips have told me that that freedom is fettered and I have to do this, that, or the other. I'm not entirely sure that the dynamic of citizens' assemblies will then create a self-perpetuating success story, because the cold reality of the delivery of governing to choose or choosing to govern will then hit the slightly abstract, slightly theoretical way of how a citizens' assembly might move. I think, if I have got time, of course, I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
The Minister now actually identifying another part of that problem. Firstly, the governments have to govern broadly and all the time be making trade-offs. But also, those who will attend citizens' assemblies, spend weekends and everyone else, are almost by definition, as we are, not in that sense representative. What makes us representative is that we are elected, but it doesn't make us normal in that sense. What it means is that ordinary citizens have other priorities and a very good thing, and sensible thing too, but it doesn't mean that those who are prepared to participate are necessarily representative of the broader public.
Well, the honourable gentleman is absolutely right, and I would add another thing which they're not, which is they're not accountable. We are accountable. We're accountable in a society with a free press and media. We are accountable through the ballot box. We can hold surgeries and people can come and see us and say, well, why did you vote for that and why did you vote against the other, etc. So it's not just the representation element, but it's the accountability. So, in conclusion, I am hugely in favour of somebody who started as a grassroots member of a political party, who got involved in politics by joining an action group to save a field at the rear of a cathedral which somebody wanted to convert into a car park. So the power of the citizen to get involved and affect change is demonstrable and clear, certainly in my mind, because I am a product of it. As MPs, let's facilitate, let's empower more people, let's convene more discussions locally to get people involved so that they can see the merits of this place. And once again, or continually, they can see the House of Commons and their council chamber and other forum where elected people serve as their true, real, legitimate and representative citizens' assembly.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered citizens' assemblies and local democracy. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30.
The proceeding has ended. 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 The proceeding